Dr. Muluka, good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
How are you doing?
Wonderful. As wonderful as can be. Yes, I'm happy to see you guys all looking sharp, dapper.
Karibu sana.
Dapper.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Sisi tunajivunia kuwa wa Kenya.
Yes. Kabisa.
Mimi navumilia kuwa Mkenya.
Don't worry, my friend. So let's City first of all take us to Southern Africa, where he has proverbs from this week.
Yeah, the People's Republic of Mozambique. Yes. The proverb. Before the proverb. Barrack.
Yes, sir.
The capital of Mozambique is Maputo.
Lorenzo Mark.
Okay. This guy was listening before you got here. He was prepared. Thank you.
So what is Lorenzo Mark? For those that have just woken up.
That is the former name of the capital of Maputo. It was called.
Maputo was initially called Lorenzo Mark.
Yes, it was. That was the name.
Allah.
Oh, yes.
When did it change?
Chief.
Ask him.
1975.
See?
That was the question for
the next one.
guest. It's another guest who's coming as ahead. But thank you, Barrack.
Welcome.
He's absolutely correct.
The next guest is going to be
The
Ken
question is,
Mijungu.
ask him, when did they get independence?
Yeah, I think we need to ask Ken Mijungu.
And you'll find...
Ken Mijungu is the next guest. He's coming in at 9.
Don't tell us. No, Ken Mijungu is going to take us to Lesotho or something. That's okay.
Now let's hear when he comes in.
You know about the coup d'etat in Portugal, 1975. The government collapsed.
It did.
Yes, and the colonies got
Collapsed.
independence.
Colonization collapsed.
Collapse at that
Okay.
point.
Yes.
And that's when now the people of Mozambique decided we are going to take back our city.
No, they didn't decide. When Portugal suffered, then things just
Went
happened.
haywire.
Yeah,
So things fell apart.
where Portugal, Principe, Sao Tome, Angola, Guinea-Bissau, and which was the other one? They got independence suddenly, and then they turned the guns
On each other. Mozambique had a 2-year hiatus. 77. Bang!
Started again fighting.
Oh, yes. That civil
and
war
Angola
lasted.
went on and on until the day the invincible Jonas Savimbi slept
Yes.
not too long ago.
He slept.
Yes, he did.
Slept.
He went to be the ancestors.
Was he taken to sleep?
Let's put it this way.
Well,
He still slept.
The constant slept, yes. The manner.
Was he put to sleep? Oh, he just slept.
He slept.
Okay. City, so what's the proverb?
If a chicken attacks you in the morning, run first, because it may have grown teeth overnight.
If a chicken attacks you in the morning, run fast. Because it may have grown teeth
In the morning.
overnight.
Yes, when you went to bed, chicken had no teeth. Morning, you never know. It may have grown teeth. So take cover.
Bas.
City, we had chicken attacking us around here for 40 years. And it didn't matter whether it was morning, night, evening, noon, whatever time, a chicken attacked. However, chicken with teeth that bite,
Teeth that bite.
and you've got to be very worried. You have to take cover. Yeah, because that means there's this fellow you have always taken for granted. This person you think is a coward. Like the one the country man was singing about. What's his name?
You're talking
Coward
about
of the county. Yes, and the day comes when the coward decides that I'm going to strike you. And when you went to bed, it was just a coward, somebody you took for granted. Then this person rises and tells you it's not business as usual.
Yeah.
Run.
Yeah. Do you think you've said the chickens have been attacking us for 40 years?
Yes.
Explain.
Those ones had teeth. You know about the cockerel. It was red in color. And it crowed until the day it swallowed a tractor. Then it got into trouble.
Right.
Somebody else was also arguing that maybe what we saw earlier this year was the chicken chasing people in the morning.
Yes, I think we have had chicken chasing people in the morning, and the chicken have gone into hibernation, and they will return because the people have refused to run, and the people are chest thumping. The people are saying, look, it is Christmas. We're going to just slay the chicken and eat them. And they'll come back. And when they come back, God have mercy on the people.
Really?
Absolutely.
Is it that bad?
Absolutely, Eric. It's that bad. That's why you seeing the oracles returning. And people are asking, where have these oracles been?
Indeed, I would ask the question myself.
Where have they been?
Yes.
Have they left?
You see, it's not the role of oracles to go around mingling with people on a daily basis. The oracles stay in the hills, in the mountains, in the valleys, in the caves. And they only come out to tell you things when they're starting to get out of order. When they come out to start telling you things getting out of order, you had better listen. Don't go around trying to answer them back and tell them things like I've been seeing on TV these past few days, including yesterday. And you can see that person number one is saying, look, there's no need for us to answer each other with the oracles. Let us just talk to one another. Now, you do not have that luxury of having conversations with oracles. The oracles proclaim. They tell you about the way, the truth, and the life. And you listen. Don't be deceived. I have read where it's written in Isaiah chapter 1 that come, let us reason together. That is in the Old Testament. I've also seen where it is written, trust and obey. For there's no other way.
So in this case, I mean, just very clearly put, Barrack, that, okay, so if you make a connection, oracle, of course, in and even in times present, are somehow a spiritual guide. However you want to describe or define your spirituality. But in this case, the most recent murmurings, not even murmurings, I guess out loud proclamations, have come from the church. Are you saying essentially that because the church has spoken, and very firmly and loudly so, that what they're saying should be heeded?
There is the inerrancy of the church. And when we talk about the church, let's first of all agree that the church may not be bundled up into one heap. And then we say this is the church. Because even within that fraternity itself, there are fissures and layers and landscapes of mutual doubt and mutual mistrust, suspicion. And they have different drivers. But there is the church. And certainly when you hear the traditional Orthodox church speaking, you had better listen. And we have had that experience in this country since the days immediately after independence, when those we trusted with the leadership in the country started taking us astray. And we remember the days when Bishop Okulu used to publish the publication that was called Target, and the Kiswahili counterpart Lengo. And of course, the political fraternity in the country was unhappy about the things he was saying after he had just returned from Uganda, where he had served as a prelate. Remember that the church was also in the process of liberation and reconstruction, where initially the so-called Diocese of Mombasa in the Anglican Church went all the way to Uganda, and I suspect in parts of the Congo. And the fiery Bishop John Okulu was a marked man, but he still spoke the truth to the state. The assassinations began in 1965, 1969, and other not so conspicuous ones in between, 1975, and the country went completely awry and astray. And the kind of misrule that he spoke of in those years and passed the baton on to others like Bishop Alexander Muga, like Timothy Njoya, like David Gitari, like Manasseh Kuria, they still continue. And these people don't come out to make noise to us on an ongoing basis. They recognize their space, as Ndu says, being spiritual, and that they recognize their landscape as being within the shrines. However, when things have gone haywire, when the representatives of the people and those who are given the responsibility to maintain oversight get lost, then that is the time that those whose mission is prophetic and apostolic will come out of those spaces to come and speak to us. They will go to Fungamano and they will force us to, or leaders, and through that leadership force us to promulgate a new constitution that then starts taking us where we have hoped to go. They will then retreat. But when you find that the legislature has been captured by the executive, when you find that the judiciary is in the process of succumbing, then that is the time that those in the spiritual space will emerge to serve their role, to play their role as the very final firewall. And that's why we are saying those in the spiritual space have come. Otherwise, they leave you within the regular non-ecclesiastical space to do your things.
I'd like to add something to it. You know, of the time you spoke of, you're spot on. There's a gentleman we must include in that group of wonderful people, Raphael Ndingi Mwana Anzeki.
Mwana Anzeki, yes, indeed.
The fundamental difference then, though, was if you examine that period, there were individuals who stood out within the so-called traditional churches. What we're seeing now is completely different. Because here, you're having the laity, the entire structure of the leadership of these traditional churches, coming out and speaking literally with one voice. Now, let me correct myself. Not just churches. You're talking about religious groupings in the country coming out and saying something that people who are in the space, or what do you call them, civil society, have been saying and so forth. But that they're speaking with one voice is the thing that I found to be of note, because this has never happened before. Where you have a situation where, as we say, the traditional churches are all saying the same thing, literally. Now that
indeed,
never happened.
I do agree with you entirely, City, that they are speaking as collective voices. And you know that the mainstream churches have got their orders. For example, and if I declare that I am Anglican, we have got 3 houses within the Anglican faith. There is the House of Bishops, then there is the House of Clergy, and finally the House of Lay. And we, the lay people, are the ones who wait for our spiritual superiors to process the messages and come and deliver them to us. The Catholic have got their own orders as well. In the older days, there was the Episcopal Conference, and from time to time, the Episcopal Conference would speak. But when it spoke, or as it was speaking, there did not seem to be any other voice or any other house coming out to speak. Today, you are seeing that collective responsibility, that collective voice within those orders, and they speak from this corner, the others speak from the other corner, and it is an indication that time is out of joint. And that let's just be very plain. Let's stop speaking in parables and proverbs. I know we started there, but let us just come into the prosaic space and say that President William Ruto, the Kenya Kwanza government, they had better start listening to these voices. And they should know that even within that spiritual, both Islamic context and the Christian context, it has been said that there will come times when they will look for prophets to speak to them, but there will be no prophets speaking to them. That there will come a time when they will attempt to repent, but it will be too late for penitence. So this is the time. And President William Ruto should rein in his hounds. I heard him say yesterday that there's no need for us to answer each other. He must lead by example.
Can I come in on that point, Barrack? Because here we are, and we saw that a couple of weeks ago, indeed, the bishops from the Catholic Church spoke very clearly about a number of things. The Anglican Church then came out, and quite a number of other churches came out. Yesterday, we heard again, and it was specific about promises that this particular administration made whilst on the campaign trail, and even after they were sworn into office, they still made more promises. And I'm trying to imagine a time where recently the president has come out on a podium and not made another promise. I think that every time he speaks, there are promises that are made as though we are still campaigning. And these sentiments that were put out yesterday were very clear that you've said certain things to Kenyans. You owe them one of two things. Either to come and say, I thought we would be able to do that, but we cannot, or to fulfill the promises that you had made. And that was the sentiment that was coming again from the church yesterday. For the president to say that we don't owe a back and forth to those who call us out, I think that there are very many things that are erroneous in that sentiment. But don't you owe the people that you've made promises to one of those two things, to either fulfill them or at least give an explanation as to why you cannot? Why is it important for somebody who sits at the helm of leadership to be in constant communication with the people they rule over? I use rule very deliberately, by the way. I use rule very deliberately.
Rule over is the operative phrase. Rule over. That are those who are privileged to occupy positions of power through what we must presume to be a democratic process, do get into those spaces, and they forget that they are supposed to be servants of the people. They become overlords. They put on garbs of intransigence and arrogance, and they start talking down at the people because power has touched their heads. And yes, they have got those two options, to either come and say, we didn't know what lay ahead. We had not the slightest idea, and it is difficult. And so we are going to propose to downsize the promise, and we are going to choose a few things that can be achieved within the resources, the capacities and abilities that we have, and kindly pardon us that we will not be able to do the rest. In the converse, they have the responsibility to deliver. And when they deliver, they don't need to crow about it because we will see it. But this is a dispensation that is all about making more and more promises, like the proverbial mother who does not have what to cook for the children. And so she puts stones, hard rocks, in a pot, puts the pot on fire, and begins boiling the stones, and keeps on telling the children that very soon we will serve something. Very soon there will be something ready for you to eat. And the children, because they are children, in the innocence, in the naivety of childhood, they believe that something will come out of that stuff. And although they can see that they are stones, they have been told that ultimately something will happen and those stones will miraculously become food. But what they forget is that there's a third alternative. And that alternative is that in the fullness of time, they will come back to the people, and the people must exercise wisdom. And if they don't exercise wisdom, then they must be left to their own fate, to their own doom. Because if you have, ladies and gentlemen, a dispensation such as the Kenya Kwanza dispensation today, which has not even reached midway in its first term, visiting the kind of atrocities it does to the people, when it still is conscious of the fact that it desires a second term, what will it do to this country? Should it, unfortunately, and I choose my words carefully, should it unfortunately have a second term, when the incumbent, the Supremo, will not need to worry about being re-elected? That is the thing that this country must think about, and think seriously.
Dr. Barrack Muluka, Strategic Communications Advisor, is our guest this morning. We're looking at what's happening in the country so far, talking about, the voice that's coming from the clergy, the religious leaders, and the response that it's getting from government and what it means. Why are the bishops speaking now? Someone was saying that, remember what happened when the Gen Z came out and were joined by their parents and brothers and siblings and cousins and everybody in the family who came out and said, yes, we agree with this message. And the message was twofold. One, you in political leadership are not doing the things that we expect you to do. And the other message was, we see you getting cheered on by the religious leaders, and you clergy, you are doing it wrong. Stop entertaining these people. The church has always been a very political organ. Do you think they're playing politics by coming out now to show, you see now, we have an opportunity to actually turn and walk back to the people? Is it political survival?
I don't think so, Eric, and perhaps I've been a little imperceptible. I'm not so sure, but let me try to have another go at it. First, there are entities whose role is to balance the power and the manner in which it's exercised in the country, and the responsibilities within the various landscapes. That we have got the executive, which is supposed to be in charge of government for the time being. Then we have got the legislature, which is supposed to be in charge of legislation, of representation and oversight, once again, for the time being. And there is the judiciary, which is supposed to be the umpire between you and me, umpire between you, me, and the state, umpire within various instruments of the state, and ensuring that in the manner in which that man Montesquieu described or prescribed, that there is a balance of power and separation of duties and responsibilities. And then, of course, you have got the ecclesiastical space, because the entities that I speak of are within the secular landscape. And then you have got the ecclesiastical space, and their role is essentially about our spiritual nourishment. And I would expect that they are not poking their finger in every secular pie and attempting to sit in that driver's seat because we are a secular state. But if we want, we could also become an Islamic republic or a Christian republic, and let the church sit in the driver's seat. I think the Constitution is very clear that there's no state religion, there's no that kind of secular responsibility. And as we say, that when the secular entities fail in their duties and responsibilities, and let's agree that in this country we have got a legislature that has been captured by the executive. And my fears and worries about that capture began under the Uhuru Kenyatta tenure, when I had the privilege to come and sit here where I am seated today and decried the whipping of Parliament from State House. So that if Martin Shikuku and Jean Marie Serone were saying in 1976 in October that they were trying to kill Parliament the way Kanu had been killed, they should come back today and see where Parliament is.
I'm hanging on your words, Barrack, because you were about to say something and I think you left it hanging. You said that if we see a situation whereby those who are responsible for the legislature or anything have failed, then there was an ellipsis.
Yes.
Are we seeing then the responsibility then of the church, who doesn't poke their fingers in every secular pie, but at this point has seen there's something going wrong? It is their responsibility to come and say, come, find your way back to the path.
May I add something, if you'll excuse me? The religious groupings and the leadership don't have to poke their fingers anywhere. They are everywhere and anywhere, anyway.
Or they should be.
No, they are, because they have members. And these very members, the people who belong to these diversity of memberships, are the very people who are in these institutions that we're referring to.
Well, these people you speak of, CT, they are actually the church. So that we have got to make a distinction between the church and the leadership of the church. And that's why earlier on we spoke about the House of Bishops, we spoke about the House of the Clergy, and we spoke about the House of Laity. And when they are put together, they constitute the church. And the church leadership tends to stay in its lane, addressing our spiritual health. But when those who are supposed to be addressing our corporeal health fail in their duties, then those who are in charge of our spiritual health must stray into that space. And you can trace it even in the advent of Christianity in the so-called world that had been left behind. They arrived here with the church, they arrived here with the school, and they arrived here with the hospital. The missions that were established, for example, the Kavirondo diocese, which was established in 1904 by Walter Edwin Beecher.
You wonder why I laugh? He belonged to that diocese. By virtue of coming from a certain geographical area,
All of you were just
yes, you are lumped together. Yes.
The Kavirondo diocese was established in 1904 by Walter Edwin Beecher
Yes.
in Maseno. And if you went there and you found the mission in Maseno, you'd find the school, it is there. You'd find the church, it is there. And you'd find the hospital, it is there. And it spread its wings into the entire Kavirondo Gulf, the entire Kavirondo region. So the church, therefore, will leave that spiritual space to come and help to correct. If you go into the Old Testament, because I can speak a little more authoritatively about the Christian faith rather than about the other faiths, you will find that there are people who are called the prophets. As you start reading this testament, you don't see these prophets anywhere. You only see these prophets when the secular spaces have collapsed. And you find within those spaces, for example, a prophet like Nehemiah, who will come and tell King Ezekiel that you have been given an extension to your life of 15 years. Put your house in order. Yeah? And the Gen Zs, when you see them coming out and taking over the House of Parliament on the 25th of June, and then retreating, and you see the prophets coming out, they are telling President William Ruto, you have been given 3 years. Put your house in order. They don't have to be there every day.
Which is where I'm pushing back and saying, I welcome what the religious leaders are doing and speaking. But I'll also think back to a position, a time, 2020, 21, 22, when we hosted them here and we kept asking, where is the clergy? Where are the religious leaders? Where are they? We're not hearing their voice. We hosted here Canon Samuel and kept asking, where are people like you who speak the way you speak from the pulpit? We hosted the Archbishop Ole Sapit and asked, where is the clergy? The Bishop of Nyeri Diocese, Catholic Moheria. We hosted me and asked, where is the clergy? Now we're hearing the clergy speaking. I welcome them. But I'm also looking at it from the other side, and I posit that they are also playing a political survival game. Because when the youth occupied parliament, the youth also occupied church. They said, we are going to church, occupy a church this Sunday, and stand up there and say, do not give these people an opportunity to speak. Because you're used to doing that. You've given them opportunities to come and speak and spew lies at the pulpit. The youth said, don't do it. The youth said, the church is wrong. The church is now correcting itself. It's not that it's, speaking because they had taken a back seat to watch things happen. No. The church had lost its way. It's regaining its way.
Eric, I don't want to accuse you of becoming some kind of pontiff in your own right. But I want to point out that we don't have the luxury at this moment of internal attrition and asking each other whether we are about survival of certain entities or not. That notwithstanding, I think there are also certain misapprehensions here that are deserving of correction. First, within the Catholic Church, it's been very clear, and I'm not Catholic. I'm Catholic only in the sense that Christianity is universal, but not belonging to the Roman Catholic faith as such. But I can speak for them and say that they are vindicated by the fact that they are not in the habit of inviting the political class to the days to speak from there. That I'm seeing within the evangelical and Pentecostal orders, which I cannot understand. I can also say that I have not seen that happening within the Anglican fraternity. And I do remember very clearly that during the commissioning of the Bishop of Butere, the Right Reverend Ross Okoh, that the Most Reverend Bishop Ole Sapit made it very clear that the politicians were to speak neither at that event nor anywhere else within the Anglican Church. It was made very clear, and I think that remains the practice. There's a sense in which, however, we tend as observers, and particularly we within the Fourth Estate, I say so because I've got one foot within this profession of journalism. Eric, you know that I was trained at the University of Nairobi and at the Kenya Institute of Mass Communications, and I've also trained people in the faith, that we who are the interpreters sometimes tend to paint with a broad brush and put everybody within the same bundle.
There we go. Come on,
within
Barrack. Come on, Barrack.
And we need to,
Barrack.
you know, Shikuku told Tip,
yes,
that in Parliament, as in media, one person speaks while the others listen.
Barrack,
since you want to speak, let me hold my horses.
Please do. Please do. Painting with a broad brush is what we are doing. We are painting the political class with a broad brush and not singling out anyone who's doing things well, all right? But we're also painting on the other side. We paint with a broad brush because it's a broad brush. Yes, indeed. Like I mentioned, when you hosted those leaders here from the church, we're asking them, where are others like you? Because we said, Archbishop Muheria, yes, you speak out. But where are others? Archbishop Ole Sapit, yes, you speak out, but where are others? And the general consensus was, there are those of us who are speaking. There are those of us who are leading our church and saying, for example, the Anglican Church, we are not going to accept donations from politicians. Archbishop Ole Sapit even released a statement and said, if a donation does not come in the form of a check, well, we can trace back and say this is where the money has come from. We are not taking it. We have seen that, all right? But now we are talking about the church, the clergy coming out united. They were not united before. That's the point. It's not that the Catholics are now speaking. No. It is the Catholics plus the Anglicans plus the Presbyterians plus the Methodists plus the... all of them.
Yes, I agree.
And they're all saying, like City said, they're all speaking the same language.
Yes.
Why now? Why are they
which
speaking
is
different languages?
Which is
just
a good
14
thing.
months ago?
Which is a good thing, and which indicates, Eric, that we have hit an all-time low. Yeah,
for both sides.
We are at the bottom, and if perchance we should sink any deeper than we are, then it will be total disaster because we can only sink into heads.
But I can ask a question. Forgive me for interrupting you. I want to ask a question. Did the church have to wait this long for them to speak? Because so many things went wrong.
The critical,
so many things went
the critical thing is not even about how long they had to wait. The critical thing is where we are. They say in Kiswahili, ushikwapo shikamana.
So you're saying
we cannot be refusing to shikamana because we are asking, where have you been? We need to be rolling this wheel.
If we don't understand the motive,
ahead,
we may get swept away.
And the motive is very clear, as we have indicated. And I'm not a clergyman, first of all. Yeah, I'm an ordinary man in the street.
No, actually, you're not an ordinary man in the street. An ordinary man in the street doesn't have your knowledge. Neither do they have the influence that you have. You're not an ordinary man. An ordinary person is the one whom the church was supposed to represent An ordinary man is a person whom legislature was supposed to protect. An ordinary man is a person whom the government has not protected, and that is why these questions are being asked. Because the voice you spoke of, correctly so, the prophetic voice of the church, it doesn't wait for a disaster. It speaks continuously and consistently. That is what it does.
I mean,
you see wrong, you speak.
I may
you don't
not
wait for it to become a big wrong.
I may not be an ordinary man in the streets, but I'm an ordinary Christian gentleman. And as an ordinary Christian gentleman, I am aware of the fact that sometimes it's just one voice. And even if it's just one voice that is speaking to us,
a lonely voice speaking in the wilderness, you said?
Yeah, like we have heard of such voices, the voice of the prophet Elijah, the voice of John the Baptist, the voice of even Jesus Christ himself. And in the secular world in which we live, we have heard of the voice of Thomas More. Thomas More, when King Henry VIII wants to divorce Catherine of Aragon so that he can marry Anne Boleyn, yeah, he goes. Henry goes to Thomas More and asks Thomas More, why is it that everyone else has accepted that it's in order for me to contract this marriage so that I can have an heir. And he tells the king, look, if everyone has accepted, what does my lonely voice count for? And the bishop is told that there are those who follow me because I'm the king of England. There are those who follow me because I'm a lion and they are jackals. I'm the lion in their midst. There are those who follow me because they follow anything that moves. And then there is you. So that you, if there's been just one you who has been speaking, from my Christian perspective, that is good enough. That when I look at the book of Genesis, I see that God wants to destroy Gomorrah, and he's asked, suppose there's only one good person, will you still destroy? So I think the fact that there have been those voices has been good enough, and now that they have come together, let us encourage them to keep us going, lest we should be mired in an unnecessary quagmire of filibustering and hair splitting. I thank you.
Thank you, Barrack. Thank you for joining us today. Dr. Barrack Muluka is a strategic communications consultant and advisor. He's been our guest.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.